Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 54 of the Cosmic Force. And tonight we are talking the Trail of Shadows trade paperback, which is part of the High Republic. So it is going to be lots of fun talking about this little mini series. So let's go ahead and get right into it tonight. And let's go ahead and introduce everybody, starting with Emma. Congratulations. I believe, based on a note from earlier, you are done with your semester of college, correct?
That is correct. Yes, hello everybody. Today I had two finals, two very difficult finals, and I am so glad that it is done. And then right after my two finals, I went to the place I'm renting for school to pack it all up. So it is fair to say I am absolutely exhausted,
Oh, that's
but
right. This
I'm
is
so
your
happy to be
old
here.
setup.
This is, yeah, I'm back like at home.
That's right.
All of my podcast stuff is out of the condo I was renting, and yeah, so it's gonna be a fun show, and it looks way smoother than it did last week. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, it's all good here now.
All right. Well, it's gonna. I thought everything looked great last week. I wasn't here last week. Obviously, I was being a dad. So I
I appreciate it
appreciate
anyway.
Corey. I appreciate Corey and Timothy stepping in for me and filling in. So yeah, last week was awesome. All right, let's go ahead and say hello to Caleb tonight. Caleb, how are you doing? Again with the amazing tie. I am so jealous of your tie collection.
Well, I said you're just a couple of eBay purchases or Amazon purchases away from joining me. But congratulations on you. I saw you're rocking our own show merch, so good on that.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, no, it was good. I feel like I was one of the few people who actually managed to make it to Free Comic Book Day, more or less because I knew you would ask me about the things I got. We might get into that a little bit later, but I actually did get a lot of stuff.
One of us.
Yes, Free Comic Book Day was awesome. I don't have the photo. I think I tweeted the photo earlier this week of my collection because I had to shop for 4 people because if I go, I have to bring my kids, and if I buy something for one of my kids, I have to buy it for all 3 of my kids. So that gets a little much. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. And our last host of the night, Timothy, I believe this is we've talked about this a little bit in the pre-show. I believe this is the first time you and I have actually been on the show at the same time, because normally you've been filling in for me. So this is going to be awesome tonight.
Yeah, I am so excited. I was talking, it was really interesting because last week I hosted with Corey on here, and I think that's the first time that I've ever been with him as well. And it's weird that it happened on the Cosmic Force, not the Living Force, because I typically fill in from there. So it's good to finally get people kind of where they're supposed to be. And also, if y'all remember from last week, I had a pencil Jacob. I don't know if you can see him or not, but he is kind of hidden right there.
I see him now. Yes.
Just kind of hanging out.
Okay.
So, still with us. So
it'll be my favorite thing week to week.
Yes,
trying to see where he is.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Sure. We did hear from Jacob. He has passed everything that he needs to pass in order to make his trek over to his internship. So again, we wish him luck, and we will make sure that we'll try to find ways to have him appear on the show in some form or fashion other than the cardboard style throughout the summer. But best of luck to Jacob, and we can't wait to have you back. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Youtini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And if you can't join us live, that is okay, because we are also available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. We are also part of the Youtini podcast network of shows in a Discord channel at youtini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members and dozens of channels to choose from. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head on over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Youtini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Youtini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. So before we get into the weekly pull list, Caleb, you had mentioned Free Comic Book Day, which was, of course, this past Saturday. So I wanted to kind of go around the room and check in. Did we go to Free Comic Book Day? Did we get anything? And Caleb, since you gave ahead and gave us a preview, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. So what was your haul from Free Comic Book Day?
I said I got maybe about half a dozen or to a dozen of the actual like free comics. I would leave through some of them. Most of them were pretty good. Some of them were, they're free comic books, so we can't judge them too harshly. Definitely there to make you buy more and get into the comic. But I did pick up a lot of Star Wars stuff. This has a bit of a story. So the first thing I went to is actually there's a video game store right next to it. So I picked up the two PS2 games I didn't have because I showed them off yesterday. So that's the very first Battlefront, and then Star Wars: The Force Unleashed for the PlayStation 2. I kind of don't want to ever play this because I'm sure it's horribly nerfed from what the original or from the full like PS3, Xbox 360 editions are. But one of these days I might try it out just to know what I'm getting into there. Let's see here. I got this one is for Jared. This is Dark Forces 2. The Dark Empire 2, Dark Force Rising 14. Let's see here. The big ones I got is I got a couple floppies. I got the Galactic Bake Off. So
very nice.
If only because it has a recipe in the back. And because I always talk about her and I always put her in all my artist spotlights.
Yes.
The Peach Momoko variant cover of Avar Chris.
I'm surprised you didn't own that already.
Same. I don't do a lot of physical shopping. So when I was going through the entire rack of Star Wars comics, and I saw that, I'm like, I gotta put my money where my mouth is. And then the very last thing I got that was actually is relevant is ta-da! I actually got the trade paperback for today's episode, The High Republic Trail of Shadows. So that's my pretty major haul here. I will say
that is a nice haul. Absolutely. Timothy, did you end up making it to a comic book store?
I did not make it to a comic book store. However, I mentioned last week that I was going to start reading the X-Wing comics, and I did start officially. So I'm like one issue in, and it was fun. So very excited to get into that, but no free comics outside.
Emma, what about you? Did you get a chance to make it to Free Comic Book Day?
Unfortunately, I did not. I had my eyes buried deep in some virology and some cellular and molecular biology.
Those are words that I don't know how to spell.
Same here.
I was struggling with them earlier today.
Yes, I do not have a picture of my entire get for all four of my kids. But if you go to my Twitter at TyRags, you can see it. The highlights, it was a lot. The highlights, my 5-year-old, I think my 5-year-old is going to be my comics fan. I've got my oldest is my Star Wars fan. My middle is my Marvel fan. I really think my youngest is going to be my comics fan. I finished his miniseries of Scooby-Doo and Batman. He has all 12 issues of that now. And shout out to Jared again. I got him his first Mighty Morphin Power Ranger comic because he loves that TV show. So that was the two highlights for my kids. For me, since I'm all caught up, since I normally do physical, there wasn't too much for me to get. The only thing that I did end up getting is the Star Wars Adventures, the Light in the Dark collection, because I love these little books. They're just the perfect size. And the real highlight that I have my eye on, because my local comic book store, because I have a pull, I get 25% off my trade paperbacks, but on Free Comic Book Day, they were also doing 25% off of toys and sculptures. So this is the Black Series Darth Vader, and I love his cape is awesome. He's got the little under cape. He's got the long cape. It's like folded over itself on the shoulders. His little hand is, I don't know if you can see that. His little hand is force choking somebody. This is just, I have not owned a Darth Vader toy since I was a kid and the Power of the Force. So this was very, I've had my eye on him for like a month. So I wanted to make sure that I supported my local comic book store. So he's going to join me tonight on the table because I don't want to put him back there because he's probably going to fall down. But yes,
that cape is most impressive.
The cape, like that's the thing that I'm most excited about because it is awesome. I've got a couple more black figures up there behind the Funkos on all my toys. But yeah, but that was the highlight. So I also consider Free Comic Book Day a win for me. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So
very nice.
that is it for Free Comic Book Days, which was Saturday. But if you happen to go to the comic book store today, we have one thing on the weekly pull list. So Emma, do you want to go ahead and say which book this is?
That's correct. We actually have that and a manga. Let me just should have worn my glasses, I realize. So actually really quickly, so we don't have any new patrons this week, but I do want to say a really quick thank you to our patrons. If you're watching this and you watched last week too, you probably know that last week didn't go very well and it looks much better all of a sudden. And this is because I'm producing while Jacob is out. And I just want to say a huge thank you to our patrons because your generous money allowed us to actually, in a very tight, kind of emergency situation, get a new computer so that I can be able to stream and make sure that it doesn't look like you're getting like 1 frame per second, on YouTube. So very much appreciate our patrons. It allows us to do stuff like that, and also all of our celebration stuff, which, speaking of celebration, I got my celebration merch in today. I'm wearing the hat. I also got a shirt with this logo on it and the pin, of course. But we've got some really awesome stuff at Celebration, some giveaways. We got stickers, pins, bookmarks. So if you're going to Celebration, please come find us at our booth. Timothy, you might know the booth number on the top of your head, do you? It's like 26 something. 26.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something 6 at the end, I think. Shoot,
2686 maybe.
That sounds familiar. I will put it in the chat when I find it. But definitely find us at the booth. We'll be tweeting about it, and you'll certainly know about it. Yeah. So just thank you to all of our patrons.
Yeah, we are 2686.
2686. All right, 2686. Yep. Please come and get some freebies, and we've also got Celebration. That's on the Saturday of Celebration. You can find a link to RSVP. It's like right on the homepage of our website. I believe that goes from 6 to 9 p.m. Saturday of Celebration at the Steelcraft in Garden Grove. Yes, so definitely come join us. Celebration, guys, it's 2 weeks away, or 2 weeks from tomorrow if you're watching this live. So it is getting there. It is getting there. So definitely expect some, some more Celebration-esque content from all of us. We're getting hyped over here. I'm sure everybody else is too. All right, with that, let's get on to our weekly pull list. First up, we have Halcyon Legacy number 3, A Cause Worth Fighting For, written by Ethan Sachs, with pencils by Will Sliney, the cover by E.M. Geist, inks by Will Sliney, colors by Rochelle Rosenberg. And also this week, we have a manga. I don't know how Jacob does this. Very hard to do 2 things at once. All right, here we go. It is Leia, Princess of Alderaan, Volume 2. I believe that this is just the English translation. I believe the other one has been out for a little while. But either way, that is out today. Yesterday. Written by Claudia Gray and Harauchi, with pencils also by Harauchi. And I think we can all see Bail Organa there. Eric's in the chat. Eric, you should. Oh, I see in the chat. Who is that on the cover? You know who it is.
That's Emperor Palpatine. That's Grand Moff Tarkin.
A minor character, Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah. Yes, minor character, minor character, Grand Moff Tarkin. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. So, as always, you can find all of those links in the description below if you'd like to pick up your own copies.
All right. We're gonna do a really short what we're loving. Is anybody reading anything in particular of note other than Brotherhood or Caleb's got a finger up there. I don't know if I don't know if we're fancy drinking or if that's a hey pick me finger.
Hey pick me. So last week I mentioned that I had just started Obi-Wan Kenobi, the 2015 John Jackson Miller story.
Yes.
As of 2 hours ago, so I think 1 hour ago, 7:30, I finished it.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I got it in before like the last week of the Kenobi week that we have coming in. So if I did it in a week, you guys can do it in a week. So that's because they're doing a roundtable on that next week, I want to say, on the Legends Look Back.
That's correct. Yeah, next week is Kenobi week, and we'll have some more information about that at the end of the show. But definitely keep your eye out for all things Kenobi. We've got Kenobi fever over at Youtini.
Exactly.
I wonder why. I mean, just randomly
I don't know.
decided to just let's focus on Obi-Wan Kenobi right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I am about to start Brotherhood. I just got that in today, and that is
Nice.
because I have now finished. If you are listeners of Legends Look Back, you know that we are doing a race to the finish for myself, or for all the hosts, actually. I think now I finished my 3rd Legends book earlier today. It was the Clone Wars No Prisoners. So I am now taking a break from Legends, and I'm probably going to give up my lead because I believe Jared has read 2.5 books in like 3 days. At least it seems that way.
He's not playing around.
No, he has not been playing around. Oh my gosh.
He does
And
not
it was
want to
funny.
lose.
And it was funny because I said something in our team Slack about like, oh, that's right. I was trying to finish it. I was like, I really hope I can finish this book today before Brotherhood gets here. And he sent like a good luck Han Solo gif. And it just it screamed like the bravado of Han Solo. And I was very much intimidated by that because that was
you
like,
spoke too soon.
that was totally like, oh, you're gonna need it because I am coming for you. So yeah, it's been fun being in the lead, but by the time we come back next week, I don't think I'm gonna be in the lead anymore. So but yes, you can be sure to check in on Legends Look Back on Thursday nights at 9:30 where they do regular updates on that, our little competition there as well. All right, let's go ahead and go to our a quick break, and then when we come back, we are talking about the Trail of Shadows. So we will be right back.
It's the best back cover since Star Wars Episode 1 hardcover novelization. The one with young Anakin, because on the back, just to remind y'all, is a full headshot of Watto.
It's so big.
I think I brought this up on one of the earliest episodes of the Living Force
God, yeah.
ever, and I thought I'd bring it back.
Oh my god, yeah.
Series and all of Legends. What do you guys think? Could it be the X-Wing series? Might just be the
It
most
was pretty
romance
steamy.
intensive series ever. And we're not just talking about the scene where Corran Horn describes his love affair with an otter. I mean, a Salonian that he hooked up with her and then he broke out in chives.
Yeah, not chives.
In
Not
chives.
chives.
What's it called? The bumps?
Hives, dude. Hives.
Chives
so
go on your
sorry.
potato.
I'm hearing you say the same thing.
Chives
What
what
is-
you put on the under potato. No C. Hives.
Hives.
Not
What'd I
chives.
say?
Chives.
It's not a very common story to approach. Yeah, again, drawing the complex family tree of Django to clone identical son to clone all identical millions of sons, but they're a generation older. So then the son is kind of all Django's equal, but then Boba is a generation younger. But then that clone's son is Boba's age. But then is Boba his dad or his nephew or his uncle or his cousin? It's like.
Okay, so we are here to talk about The Trail of Shadows, a High Republic story. The writer was Daniel José Older, penciler was David Watcher, colorist was Gita Marcino, cover artist was David Lopez, and the very first issue came out in October of 2021. So for those of you who haven't been on the pulse of Youtini history, we are moving away from our standard, from the standard 1 to 10 ranking into something that's a lot more section based, and I'm very, very happy about that. So we're not going to worry about giving an initial rating right now, but I do want to kind of like preface this with a few questions just before we get into the summary here. everyone, just really quick, what really got you excited for this comic? Like when you first started reading it or first started hearing about it, was there anything that really, like, how were you feeling when you first heard about this?
I think definitely hearing that Daniel José Older was going to tackle an adult comic. I mean, because I love his work on the IDW stuff. It's really solid, but I just want to see his take on stuff that could be incorporated more in some of the adult comics, and he didn't disappoint. Like there was a little bit of romance, there's some like grungy kind of underworld stuff. It was really, really awesome. And the other thing too was certainly the preview pages that were on StarWars.com for this comic were absolutely wild with spoiler alert, there's gonna be full spoilers in this roundtable, just so that we make that clear. With Loden Greatstorm, husked, obviously from the Rising Storm. That right then I knew this was gonna be absolutely insane. So I was honestly, this was like my most anticipated High Republic project. Of Wave 3 from the jump.
And I think he has a mystery background as well. And so knowing that this was going to be like a murder mystery kind of story, and that he was going to really get into that seediness, I was all for that. So that's thing. It kind of went back to his roots a bit, but with an adult Star Wars twist. So
this one was, it was weird for me because I must have been busy when this first came out with like actual life things, because I read the first one. I tried like 2 times to read the second issue, and I either I didn't finish it or I didn't understand what was going on, and I wasn't paying attention to it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait until all 5 of these are out, and finish. It gives me the time to finish whatever else was distracting me at the time, or let the kids finish off what they were doing. And so I reread all 5 of them when they came out. I think by the time I got around to trying to read issue 2, I was waiting for issue 4 to come out. So it took me a while to get into it, but just like almost every single piece of High Republic content that we have out, the third act in this was outstanding. And if you are consuming everything for that the High Republic has put out, I would argue that this is the single most impactful thing that has happened outside of the Great Disaster at the beginning pages of Light of the Jedi.
Totally agree.
How monumental this is as the end of this first wave, and then the come back next week, when we finally get around to it for phase 3. So yeah, that's it was really, really good, and I was really excited for it.
Exactly. One of the things that really stood out to me was that it was teased and advertised as a murder mystery, and I love seeing Star Wars do different sorts of genres in it. So I was looking forward to a lot of hard drinking, smooth jazz, backroom deals, femme fatales. I was really excited about it, and we got a decent amount of that here.
I was gonna say we got a little bit of that.
Yeah. It wasn't full black and white comic yet, but I was real happy with what we got out of it. So, it looks like we got some pretty good discussion here. So let's move into the summary, because we got a lot of ground to cover. Because when I was doing the show notes for the summary, there's a lot of very dense paragraphs here, and I did my best, guys. But if it flows a little weird, just read the comics.
No,
all right. Well, issue 1 starts out in probably the most awful way possible, as we open up on the husk of Loden Greatstorm being washed away by the rain in the aftermath of the Battle of Grizal. Jedi Master Emerick Caphtor is put on the case by his friend Stellan Gios to figure out what has happened and what does the Jedi need to do. Meanwhile, on Coruscant's lower levels, private investigator Sian, I believe
it's Cyan.
I think it's Cyan.
Cyan? Okay,
well, like the color,
okay.
yeah.
I'm usually wrong, which is why I ask. Sian Holt is suspicious of her partner Kiefer and follows him to a meetup with an undercover contact, but it goes south when an unknown assailant kills Kiefer, his contact, and almost snuffs out Sian. Emerick following a lead on Vrant Tarnum, leads a Republic commando team to drive off a Nihil force in the open ruins. He finds an inscription referencing an old nursery rhyme that has been stuck in his head since Grizal. And this is the most terrifying nursery rhyme I've ever heard. I mean, it is crazy. And that's all just in issue 1. Caleb, you've got the summary for issue 2.
Yes. So, issue 2 starts with essentially no progress has been made after months of just sitting around. Tired Chancellor Lena So brings both Emerick and Sian together. Apparently, her former partner was working deep undercover for the Republic. An unknown Nihil is trying to sell a powerful weapon on the black market known for killing Jedi. This unknown Nihil's agent, Abrath Fall, was the one who killed Kefar, but the investigators have just gotten a new lead. On Vorzid 5, the pair find a crime scene where the informant has made contact with Fall. Following the clues, they track him through several dead Nihil and finally lay eyes upon his employer, Dr. Uttersound.
All right, so that was issue 2. Next, issue 3, Sian and Emerick meet up with Jedi Master Stellan Gios and update them with their findings. And the Senate has a Nihil leak, and Dr. Uttersound is working independent from the Eye of the Nihil himself, Marchion Ro. Dr. Uttersound is under suspicion from Marchion Ro, but his watcher, they're killed by Fall. When the Nihil reinforcements arrive, they find Uttersound badly wounded and left for dead. On Starlight Beacon, the investigators find Sarah and Tarek suffering from the weapon that killed Loden, and they question Keeve, who saw something, which is, by the way, a great tie-in to the High Republic Marvel series.
Mm-hmm.
Emerick begins to open up to Sian about connections and showing affection. So that is the end of issue 3.
Cool. And issue 4, which is probably my favorite issue, I don't know, maybe. We follow Dr. Uttersound, aka Corey Helton, just kidding, on his homeworld, and a newcomer, Bisar, a volunteer spy tasked by the Jedi and emboldened by her dead wife. Bisar sneaks aboard the Doctor's transport and signals the Jedi their location. The heroes, along with the Republic strike force, engage the Nihil in a space battle as Emerick cuts his way on board the transport, only to be overwhelmed by the weapon it held in large metal cages. Sian saves the day, disarming Fel and flying away with Emerick, Bisar, and Dr. Uttersound to the safest place they know, the Starlight Beacon. Maybe.
And that's where we find them at the beginning of issue 5. And obviously, shocker, it's not very safe because there is some sort of attack on Starlight Beacon. Emerick is able to bring the ship into dock, and they meet Torben and Court, who are protecting a group of younglings. Having come all this way, the party advances to find one of the Jedi killing monsters. Emerick is nearly overcome with fear and despair, but Sian manages to anchor him as they get a call from the beast and retreat. Torben stays behind on the station with, again, we begin with some amazing art. We end with some amazing with some amazing art. We will get to that. Torben stays behind on the station to help where he can. The investigators have their answer and a trophy, but victory seems shallow compared to the loss around them. And that is where we end issue 5 with a bit of a conclusion to this story, but lots providing more questions than answers for the overall scope of the High Republic. So yeah, very, very great little mini arc here. So let's go ahead and get into our in-depth discussion on our characters. So Caleb, which character are we discussing first tonight?
We're going to talk about Emerick Caphtor. Yeah, Caphtor, the Jedi Master. I really like Emerick a lot. And this is my first question here is Emerick the best example of what the Jedi in the High Republic should be? I know we have so many great other examples with Avar Kriss and Stellan Gios. He's both equally comfortable leading military forces and yet also hugging scared friends. I think that kind of seems to sum up what they're going for with the Jedi during this High Republic. Wouldn't you agree?
I would love to see I wish somebody of his temperament and persona, as you just described, was in a leadership position. because it would be very interesting. I've said this before. I really feel like the High Republic is setting up to be allowing too much emotion and too much connection, which leads to the Jedi Council as we see it in the prequel trilogy being so closed off, which eventually leads to the downfall, as we all know. And you hit the nail on the head. I really think if his temperament was in charge and more of him were in charge of the Jedi happenings, it would be a fascinating story as to how the council would operate, because I really think that he is a very balanced Jedi who is confident but understands that he has flaws and needs the help of others in order to solve anything, the greater good, for lack of a better term. Great character. I really enjoyed watching him throughout this arc.
Yeah, I've got to say, like, he is probably one of my favorite characters coming out of this. Like, he just seems so balanced, but not in the way that Jedi are supposed to be, but in a way that a human should be, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Good. Yeah, I mean, just a, really great character. And Justin said something hilarious in the chat. He makes Obi-Wan's detective work in Attack of the Clones look incredibly lackluster.
I hate to agree, but he's
100% agree. I
Yeah.
100% agree.
You're not wrong, Justin. I mean, as much as we want to disagree, I can't. So yeah, I thought he was a super interesting character. I wish that the Jedi would take some, like, as a group, I'm saying, would take some pages out of his book, because I think he's one of the most balanced Jedi that I've seen, especially out of this era.
Exactly. I think one of my favorite moments is in issue 2 when they're trying to bluff their way into like the crime scene, and Sian comes up with some line of like, we're secret investigations, and when he's pressed on it, like Emerick immediately has her back, like, of course you don't know anything about secret investigations. Like, they like that sort of immediate camaraderie of like, I do not mind lying to this police officer to get where I need to go. And that's like that. It was that moment of like, oh, so he's kind of cool playing fast and loose with what he wants.
Yeah, he's very aware of his limits, and his fallibility as a person, and knowing that Jedi can be weak, and knowing that their pride is what eventually gets the best of them at some point after this era. It's cool to see someone as humble as him going through this process, and I mean, being a good investigator. There's a quote at the end of the book. Let me see if I can pull it up. I have it saved somewhere. He basically says, for even in the darkest hours, knowledge defeats fear and shines through the shadows to show us the path back to the light. And I love that. And him being an investigator, being a little bit more humble, being open to knowledge and understanding his limits, I think makes him such a fantastic person to lead a story like this. And the fact that we got to be introduced to him, and knowing that he still has some close connections with Stellan, and like he was aware of the whole love triangle between Stellan and Elzar and Avar, and like knowing
at this
he's
point
tight,
who wasn't
like,
aware.
Right, that's fair. That's very fair. It's very fair. But yeah, it's cool. I really like what DJO did with him.
Exactly. So I have one more quick side point here. It seems like Emerick is set up to be like, if we had a High Republic video game, he seems like the most tailor-made to be a video game protagonist, like he has his connections, he's a lightsaber, and he has a cool droid.
Yes. Yeah, that droid, he reminded me of a BD-1 from Jedi Fallen Order.
I had to do show notes. I was like, wait a second. Are they the same droid? Okay, they're just similar, but they're not the exact same one.
Yeah, he's kind of like super handy and chills on his back, and he's cute too. Like, he's a cute little droid.
So when are we getting Jedi Knight High Order? Risen Order, I guess. Anyway.
Yes, please.
Starlight Noir. Wasn't there an LA Noir game a little while ago? You had to like interrogate people and figure out if they were lying or not. I could totally see.
I'm pretty sure I saw that.
Yeah. It's LA Noir.
Was 10 years ago?
That might have been the 360.
I think that's like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, he fits. Starlight Noir.
I want that, but in the High Republic. Yes, please.
Exactly. So we did talk about this a little bit with his relationship with Sian. It saved him several times during the latter half of the story because she wasn't affected by the Shrika Ray. Do you think other Jedi will start to model this behavior? Do you think, for lack of a better term, should Jedi have like a token non-Force user like tied to their side moving forward?
I hope so. It was a brilliant play, I think, to put the two of them together. I would hope that at the end of this that he goes back and he's like, hey, I figured out a way that we might be able to get through this. Everybody has a buddy. Use the buddy system. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like she was definitely necessary to include in the story because we needed a non-Force user to be able to like see through the Shrika. I think I'm saying that right.
That's a discussion for later.
Good. Okay, I'm glad we need this discussion. But I'm glad that she was included as that character though, because she wasn't just included as like a plot device. Like, you know, she had her own character and she had her own, you know, she had her own arc even really. And so yeah, while she did save him a lot, it certainly was for a good purpose and moved the story along, but it wasn't that wasn't her only purpose, which I think probably could have easily fallen into that trap, but I think Daniel avoided that very well.
I enjoy the idea of the social commentary about the Jedi needing a non-Force user to accomplish their ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Because the Jedi are seen as the saviors. I mean, that's, you know, they're the mystic, you know, the mystic religious zealot who does these crazy things with their minds, and they do like, and they've always been portrayed as the heroes, the saviors. And so times like in The Last Jedi, Luke's perspective in The Last Jedi, or the commentary of the Jedi aren't perfect, they need somebody else, I think is a really, really fascinating thing to see. So I would love to see it. I think we all know that's not going to happen because there's with all of that talk comes the bravado and the I don't even know what about, you know, we can do everything. We are Jedi. We're meant to, we are better than people, whether we want to admit it or not. We can solve these things. So I would love to see it, and I love the idea of the social commentary of it, and these two really play well off each other.
I didn't even think of it as a metaphor. I honestly thought of it more as like a practical thing, but I like it as a metaphor much better.
Absolutely. So speaking of you know, kind of metaphors and analogies and archetypes, let's talk about Sian Holt for a little bit. She seems to be, you know, when we first got, you know, some previews here, it looked like we'd have like a hard-boiled detective and did like the nerdy type, but Sian Holt seems to be kind of a mix of like two major tropes from the noir genre, and that's she's both hard-boiled detective and femme fatale. Are you guys familiar with this? Like, do you think this was a really good mixture of the archetypes, or did it seem like a kind of a strange thing to try to put in one character?
I liked it. I'm not super familiar with this like genre outside of just like the stereotypes that we all know about, but I think based on what I know about the genre, I think it could have been super easy to just make her like the arm candy who does literally nothing, and I'm very glad that that wasn't the case. I think that they made her this like kind of like slightly mysterious, kind of, you know, typical like sexy kind of mysterious. You didn't know too much about her, but it wasn't done in like a negative way. I thought it was good for the story, and I thought that she could really hold her own. Like in this case, even more than Emerick could, because she didn't have. In this case, it was a benefit to not have the Force on your side. So I didn't think that the mix was strange. I kind of liked it, you know, because it's. I mean, everybody's got, you know, those different sides to them. You can be like super serious in one moment, and then also kind of like, you know, sexy in the other one. I don't know.
Well, I loved Eric pointed out in the chat, like the contrasts are so striking between them.
Yeah.
And you've got Emerick, who is this kind of nerdy, seems like he would like kind of the forensics on the back half, like the back side of things. He'll try to solve the puzzle after it's already done. And you've got her who Sian just goes into it. I mean, like she is fully involved in the story. She is leading the charge. And that's really cool to see that pairing and to have kind of flipped it in that way, because maybe it's traditionally the other way around.
Yeah.
So to see her, going in and trying to figure out what happened to her partner and really leading the charge and pushing for like, hey, you're not going to go and battle this thing by yourself. I'm coming with you, dummy. like to see her kind of take charge in that way was really dope. And I truly bought every aspect of her character, like her going up on stage and like singing and doing all that cool stuff and like making little jabs at him. Like I totally bought all of that as who she was. So it's really cool.
I loved her character as we got on with the series. And I think that's one of the things. And again, I said that I was distracted and not really paying attention to the first 2 issues that when I first tried reading it. And I think all of the elements of her character was a lot. If I'm not paying full attention, I'm not really consuming everything that there is on the pages. There's a lot of her backstory and a lot of elements of her that to consume. So that might have been thinking now, reading through the some of the panels and going through our discussion, there was a lot to unpack there in that first 1.5 issues. But as I think from the time that they started with that playful banter, I believe was in issue 2, where they're getting into their disguises and like the panel, like Emerick is changing and like the panel is like very suggestive of like, okay, there's some tension, there's some attraction here. As the 2 of them got warmer with each other, that's kind of when my interest in for the 2 characters really started to follow their level of interest for each other, just because, like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with I just wasn't paying, reading it the first time through to in depth. But I do remember that there was a lot to consume in that first book and a half.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very happy with her character. I think, it would have been, for like a better term, easy to try to subvert this sort of thing and make her 100% hard-boiled private eye, shoot first, take no questions, kind of a gruff personality. But I really like what DJO did with her character, and like she is a lot more nuanced. She has her music. She also has, is encouraging Emerick to open up several times and plot him wrong that way. I love, like, it's a great dynamic that she has here, and she moves into like being a kind of fully formed character, as we've mentioned here.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll also mention too is, imagine that we're in the 90s and this is Legends, right? If this story was in Legends, she would have had the skimpiest outfit. She would have been sexy, helpless, nothing to do, plot device.
That, or she would have been sexy but super badass and be able to shoot all the guns and hang with the boys with the best, and that would have been her character.
I'm
like
so
they would have been
glad
like, we're so subjective because she can actually shoot people like like a boy.
Right, so it's like, oh, that makes it better. But like, I'm so glad that like this day and age, like she has a super cool, it looks like a flight suit almost.
Right.
Very cool. She can, she shows like both those sides of her, right? Like she can take control of the situation, but she can also like do her little singing thing on the side and kind of still have that like that part of her that is, slightly sexy and mysterious, but that's not just like straight up all of her character. And I think all of this is to say is that she's incredibly 3-dimensional, and I think that's really important.
She saves the day.
She does.
Yeah, she's a good character.
Without her, everybody in issue 5 dies, because there's nobody left to get off of the station. So I mean, she is the most important character in this whole arc, because without her, without a female non-force user, every single one of those Jedi die at the end. I mean, or are left in a very, very not beneficial position, because there's still a couple of people who were, are they or are they not, but they are in a much better position, and she saved a number of younglings, at the end, because of her talents.
Yeah, I
If
very much
anything-
like the way that DJO writes women. I always have. Like, I think, whether it's in IDW comics, whether it's in some of those books, I think he does a very good job of not, kind of reducing them to just one thing, no matter what that one thing is.
Yeah, I think that DJO gave us exactly what we needed to have of both of these characters, both Emerick and Sian. But I would love to get a more expounded backstory on her and her time in the Force and everything that she was working on. So put DJO on a YA novel with her in it, like as the lead character, I would take it any day. I hope we get a lot more from both of them going forward, because I think that this particular story and these two characters probably jived with me more than just about anything else in the High Republic.
I agree with that.
So,
wow, high praise. So speaking of moving forward and resolution here, she never did kill Arthab Fell, who was the muscle who shot her in the very first issue and also killed her former partner. Was just disarming him enough for her to get resolution for her character plot, or do you think there's still some things unresolved there?
I honestly think that her saying that she wanted revenge and stuff, I honestly think that was just kind of a facade, honestly, because she said that in front of Lena So and the other politicians. I honestly think that was a facade. She doesn't really strike me as somebody who is super vengeful, I wouldn't say. I think that her having some sort of a higher purpose, such as working with Emerick on this case, kind of allows her to take her mind off of it and feel like she's doing something to avenge her partner instead of kind of dwelling on it, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that plot point was dropped fairly quickly.
Certainly.
And moved on towards the we save what we love more than fighting the things we hate. So, and I was totally fine with that.
Me too.
Exactly. So speaking of Arthab Fal, the muscle, he's kind of our primary antagonist for the first couple issues. He's just a big bundle of muscle for someone who's actually pulling the strings. Again, we didn't see him killed, but when we see him again in the future in phase 3, do you think we'll be able to continue his story with Sian, or do you think he'll be here as an antagonist for someone else?
I bet we never see him again.
Both.
I think there are bigger fish to fry.
I'd love to see both. I'd love for him to be swept up in some greater evil, which forces us to return to bring Sian back into whatever story it is, in phase 3. So if we can use Fall to bring Sian back, hey, then he's done his job. Because I don't need to see him again, but if I want to see the other, the good Sian and Emerick back.
Absolutely. So speaking of the one who's actually pulling the strings, let's move on to our final character here, Dr. Uttersound. His betrayal of Rose seems a little sudden. Do you think he just wants to get money now, or do you think Uttersound is, since he's kind of works directly on the Gaze Electric for Martian Road, do you think he's seen the end of the Nihil coming, even though they are on an ascendant path? Do you think he's trying to get out while the getting's good?
Man, he is slippery. I don't think he was ever fully down with anyone. I could tell he was in it for himself. Even before we had this, you could tell he was sketchy. And I mean, and basically anytime there's a doctor in Star Wars that does anything mildly evil, you just should not trust them. And I think that Martian, I think, hopefully he'll learn his lesson. I don't think Uttersound is, was in it for anything but himself, and maybe to try to sell the weapon on the black market. I think maybe he saw an opportunity, oh, the Nihil can fund my research. but I'll make all the profit and just jump ship. You know, that's what I honestly think.
He's got to pay off
thinking.
medical school.
Exactly. He literally said when I read that again, I laughed so hard because it's like it's that tiny bit of real world that is like so true, and I love seeing it in Star Wars. Like they have medical school bills too.
Like him and our founder, Dr. Corey Helton, are like two peas in a pod. They're both doctors, deep in debt, short, hairy. So Justin in the chat just put a really good way. He think the way he sees it is that Dr. Ursan is just so afraid of Ro that he's just trying to get out of the casino while he still has chips in his pocket. That's a good way of putting it. Of like, you know,
I think it's survivor mentality of. He reminds me, as in the middle of this discussion, he reminds me a lot of Uchi of Bestoon, and that hey. You're in power now. I should put I should grab onto your coattails. But the second you something start hitting the fan over here, I am jumping ship to these guys. So
such a great
that's
comparison.
I see a lot of comparison in those two characters.
Absolutely. So another point here about him trying to sell out and get that money, he's trying to sell a Jedi killing weapon essentially on the black market. So obviously there must be a buyer for it outside of the Nihil, outside of his organization. This is just some like weird meta discussions here about the state of the Star Wars universe in the High Republic. But who would those buyers be, do you think? Like what sort of people would say, yes, I'll buy, 10 Jedi killing warheads, please?
The first things that came to mind were the Hutts for me.
Same. I was just about to say that.
Yeah. They've had such an emphasis in the last. I mean, really since this has started, and then they've also been big, obviously in the time between Empire and Return of the Jedi. Their whole arcs there, but I don't know. It seems like a Hutt stay in the sun, and they seem to not like Jedi at all. So I'm all there for it.
Yeah,
and considering
I agree with you there. Maybe also like I wonder if we're about to get some like black market type of like drug dealer type of thing, kind of like maybe the rise of the syndicates. I wonder if we're gonna see that. That would be interesting.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I was just about to say, considering this is a time of peace and we've been given no reason to think that stuff exists yet, as Emma, you just said, maybe we're gonna get that. I can't think of a better answer than the Hutts.
Well, I do have one, like Hutts probably would have the most money to throw around, but remember, there is hidden in the shadows during this time frame, master and an apprentice of the Sith Lords.
That is true.
Like they have got they would be looking for something like tailor-made to kill Jedi, so they would be the ones who would be probably make the most benefit from it. But again, we haven't seen or heard anything Sith-wise one way or the other, so maybe we'll get more of that in phase 2. Maybe we'll get some more explanation here, but
it would also be interesting being that the weapon he's trying to sell is the Nameless themselves, right? So I would almost wonder how that would affect Sith if they were in control, since it dampens and kind of freaks out Force abilities. I wonder if there's something. It would be an interesting or something. Yeah, it'd be an interesting tick if they like lean into that, or if it, I don't know.
Okay, Justin in the chat, this is funny. Hutts do also enjoy collecting rare, dangerous animals.
Got a point.
Got a point.
Justin coming in with the points. My God.
Exactly. All right, so the last point I want to ask about Dr. Othersound here is he has two scales here. Which is heavier? Do you think he is a more funny character, or is he a more tragic character?
I think he's tragic.
I think he's comedically tragic.
If I had to pick one, I would say tragic, but I honestly think none of them. I think he's frustrating.
My point is, I think he's more of a funny sort of character. I think like his speech about, listen, I don't care about the Republic. I don't care about Nihil. I don't care about politics. I only care about money and living to see tomorrow. That's it. That's my only two things.
I mean, the part with his family was pretty sad, though. Like, I mean, the fact that he would risk all that.
There's a backstory there. Like he's clearly talented at what he does, right? Like he's really good at it. So maybe it's one of those things he was just kind of picked up and moved to it, and that's why he has to stay alive. I don't know. There's more to it, and he's probably just grown cynical in I've been doing this for a long time. I'm probably not gonna get out of it, but I didn't really have much of a choice.
Yeah.
So
unreliable narrator.
Yeah, he is funny though. He has some
Oh,
great
yeah,
moments
sure.
there in chapter 4. All the close-ups of him and like his eyes get really big and he's like holding the rifle or whatever. I'm like, he's crazy.
Yeah, Chadra fans in general are like I find super funny. Like they're one of
Mhm.
the like wackiest little creatures, I think.
Right up there with Kowakian monkey lizards.
Oh yeah.
Truth.
Okay, so let's move into some more general discussion questions. And I think this is the one that we teased a little bit ago. How does the song go? Is it, Cherie Karay Karay? Is it Cherie Karai Karai? What do you guys think?
I think it's the second one.
I
Karai
think
Karai.
yes. The way that in the show notes you say that the book mentions that it should rhyme with a way, but the audio drama pronounces it more of a rye. I think the book is the greater is in the source material. I think the comic book trumps the audio drama narrator's perspective. So I'm gonna go with Ray, which rhymes with a
Yeah.
way.
Actually, I
me
think you
too.
convinced me. Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
I
also,
don't
it
know
makes
about you-
sense for it to have to rhyme with a way. Like if you're
Yeah.
thinking about it like from a structure standpoint, the song, like that makes sense.
Exactly. And when I first read the song, I know we also, not to keep putting the audiobook down, but I always thought it was like more quicker cadence. It was like Cherie Karay Karay, we're coming to take you away. That sort of more quick cadence.
Mhm.
I thought it was more fast paced, but meanwhile the audio drama was a much more like a wailing sort of slow tune. I thought it was a little more quicker because that's what I've originally thought to. If just because I listened to a lot of 70s gag songs, and that's what I originally thought of.
I think maybe like that's the nursery rhyme part of it is the slowness, maybe. Although,
Makes
by
it a
the
little extra
way,
creepy.
yeah, I know. By the way, what a horrible nursery rhyme. Like,
Right?
did the person just want to like freak them out or make them not go to sleep?
Well, okay, if you deep dive on all sorts of nursery rhymes, a lot of them get really dark.
That's true.
I was gonna say this reminds me a lot of like Ring Around the Rosie, where
Yep.
it's like
Yeah.
I'm now understanding and this is not a song that my 5-year-old should be dancing to on the playground. Like, hold on one second.
Or like when you're listening to a song on the radio and you're like, man, this is catchy, and then all of a sudden you like take a second to think about the
Like,
words. And you're like, oh,
Like-
they're talking about
like, what?
drugs. Like,
Like,
okay.
let's go to Genius lyrics. Oh no. Oh
That
boy.
has happened to me so many times.
All right, so official the Cosmic Force, it is Cherie Karay Karay.
Yes.
Stamp of
Okay.
approval.
Stamp of approval. There we go. All right, so this is a more kind of big story. The question here: does the trade paperback work as a standalone story, or is the context of the Greater High Republic required to make it make sense?
This is
I
a
feel
tough
like
one.
this might be. I feel like this
I
is
have-
like in my personal opinion, I feel like this could be the High Republic's biggest long-term failing. Is that you need to read it all like together and kind of in a set order. Like you
yes.
cannot just read all of the comics and then go back and read the books. You have to read the first book, the first volume, then the second book, then the second volume, and then like the Trail of Shadows, and then the third book at the while in between the issues. I feel like they've done such a brilliant job tying it all together that sometimes it's hard to pull individual stories out. Co-host, how do you feel?
This was the major question that I had amongst us in our private chat about, preparing for the show. If I were to look at my friend who casually reads Star Wars, he's read 2 or 3 Star Wars books, loves the movies, loves the TV shows, animated, real, and live action. If I were to give him this trade paperback and say, read this, I don't think he'd enjoy it. And I think it's because who is this? What is going on? Where are we? I really think that is the one major, I would, in this context, knock, as you say, Caleb, on this book and the High Republic as a whole, is this really can't stand alone. You really need a lot. I mean, I can't even sit here and say, oh, if you only read the comic, it would make sense. Like you need a decent amount of High Republic exposure for this to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was leaning towards it could stand on its own, but you make a very good argument. And here's the reason why I initially was leaning towards it could stand on its own, because they do a really good job of introducing what the mystery is. Like, there's this Jedi Master. He is crumbled, mushy, and gray, and in a pile of dust now, and we need to figure out why. That's obviously, pretty reductive in terms of like what's happened. But yeah, perfect timing on the slideshow. I mean, so we get that as like the opening thing.
Oh my gosh, it's so
I
painful.
didn't do that on purpose. So that's why I was leaning towards that. However, there are so many characters and so many references that you have no idea. Like, you don't need to know who Master, Torben Buck is, but it's more enjoyable if you do. But then there's things like Lena So and Stellan Geos. They play major roles in this story, even though they're not, actually on the page for a long time. And so if I'm coming into this with no High Republic knowledge, it's like, oh, there's this like bearded guy and this lady with some lions. It's like, there's like no meaning behind these characters. So I now tend to agree with you that you definitely need to know a little bit and know even about the Nihil. Like, how are you? I mean, obviously they're bad guys. They have like all of the visual cues of bad guys, but how are you supposed to know all of the atrocities that they've committed and that? I don't even think that you could know that they were the ones in charge of this whole atrocity, even like without any backstories. And now that I'm thinking about it, totally, you need a lot of reading.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go on the other end.
Okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I intentionally tried, and I know it's not fully possible because I have read this before and I do know all the context around it, but it's been so long since I've read this, and so long since I've read some of the other High Republic mainline stuff, right? That I think it does do a phenomenal job of, like, one of my favorite films growing up was The Bone Collector. I don't know why, but it's very much in this setting. Angelina Jolie, Denzel Washington, but it's
growing up as in like it was high school.
Let's skip that part.
I need to Google this.
It's a fantastic film.
I have questions, but we'll save it for a post show.
But I think it fits the theme of the genre. Like, you don't have to know everything that's going on because it will be unpacked through the course of the show, through the course of the issues. And while there were moments like when Keeve popped up, I think they explained everything that happened there in the moment to get by. I think this is also, it works in the way that Star Wars typically works, right? Like, Star Wars started in the middle of a giant story with references to the Clone Wars and all of these other things that have been happening and going alongside. So I think that it would be interesting to give this to someone right off the bat. But I think that for the context of these characters, if all you knew was Emerick and I just blanked on her, and Sian. Yeah, I think that there's a greater story in this, but that it's not necessary to understand this particular set of trades, this particular set of comics. And so I think the story here is like on its own. Sure, it pushes beyond, but I think it gives enough. Yeah, this was a Jedi Master, a great Jedi Master who was husked, and we don't really know why and what happened. And that's it. And then you get to the end, and it's these creatures are finally figuring it out, and like, oh, like there's more to this, and I'm going to want to figure that out too. But this gives more answers to the larger story anyways. So it'd be interesting to have read this first and go, oh, I might want to read that. The rest of these comics, I would have liked to have seen, particularly with the moment with Keeve, that it was like, this just happened, and I would have loved one of those little blocks that says, for more context, read the High Republic mainline issues, blah 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 blah.
I just got back into DC Comics, and in one issue, I swear there was 5 different references to other books. So
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I could see a world where if I handed this to someone and said, this is like a murder mystery noir story set in the Star Wars universe, there are some big things that happen that you will probably eventually want more context to. But if this is all you have, I think it's a great story to pick up and read and be be in the know and caught up with the essentials to move forward, I think.
And
I could get down
we
with
need
that.
to give we need to give DJO's credit, because he absolutely, the story itself does give you a clear start and a clear end, and and in 5 issues you get a very great story with great characters. I feel like there's enough loose threads, and maybe if I put it this way, the payoff from only reading these 5 issues compared to the payoff you get from reading even 50% of the High Republic is significantly different. So I will agree with you that you can read just these 5 issues and get a very good story, but you get a better story if you are completely engrossed in the rest of the content.
Yeah, I can definitely see both, sides of it. I think, it's also, I feel like it's also hard coming from all of our standpoints of having read, some of us the entirety of the High Republic initiative itself. So I think it's kind of hard to, pretend like we haven't read anything.
It very much blends, like that. I don't remember what is that in a book? Is that in the young adult book?
Which is good. That means that they're doing
that in a comic?
Good, yeah.
Right, exactly.
And he gave us everything. I mean, we saw
Avar,
we saw Stellan, we saw Buck, we saw Quart. The payoff is there. He was able to tie in every corner of his universe.
No Elzar
art.
But he got a name drop though. That's fine. That's all he needs to know that people remembered him.
So Timothy, and for people that are haven't been watching all of our High Republic episodes, this is a running theme. So if you're new listening here, I also do some videos for Youtini, and I do, I've been doing a lot of High Republic videos lately, obviously. And, I did a Fallen Star recap. Elzar, one of, if not the biggest protagonist in that book. And he only has like 3 pictures of him in existence.
So little art.
Because at that time, was Star Wars number 20 out yet?
I believe we only had the previews from StarWars.com.
Okay.
So I don't really count that also because he looks like super old, but I did use him though. So it's like, how many different ways can I crop this? Because I need about 20 images of Elzar.
Turn it upside down.
Yes.
Invert the image. Invert colors.
Black and white.
Put some explosions behind him. So that's kind of the running joke. Please, more Elzar pictures, please.
Elzar win.
And maybe no more of Buck. We may have seen too much Buck.
We've seen all of Buck.
And by the way, catch the Living Force, the High Republic draft episode that I was on. There's a very funny moment. I had an idea during the ad break of that involving him and my printer. So definitely check that out.
Oh, all right.
So good.
So, we touched on this a little bit. But the story was marketed as a buddy cop murder mystery. Now, that was where it started off at. But not to sound too mean about it. Despite that, the climax of the mystery wasn't really deduced. It was explained to them by the villain they captured, and the final fight was won through the power of love. Do you think this ending was kind of at odds with where the series started, or was it just kind of in Star Wars, like they deserve a big explosive ending with a huge climactic fight?
I mean, I didn't really find it all that problematic. Like, I mean, now that you're like explaining it, I kind of like see the point a little bit. But it hadn't super crossed my mind. I mean, they kind of discussed. I mean, Sian got to actually see what these things are, and she's probably gonna be able to go back and like describe to the council and to the Senate like what these things looked like and what they sounded like and what they maybe even felt like if she was able to touch one even. And I think they definitely got more out of it than maybe we can originally see, in the comic. I think when we put it all together, it's like, okay, they've got the information from Dr. Uttersond, and now they've also got Sian's depiction of it, as well as, I mean, they had Quart and Buck go kind of stand at the edge of its effectiveness and kind of feel what it was doing to them. Court makes it out. We know that. We do not know about Buck, so we definitely have much
His clothes
more
made it
information.
out.
His clothes made it out. not his sumo wrestler thing. Everything else did though. Thank goodness. So yeah, I mean, I think if they go back, they test the blood on his robes, take into account all of the descriptions from the Jedi that were able to feel him, and Sian's depiction as well. I think they could probably deduce like exactly what this thing is. I just don't think we're there yet in this story, and I think, I think we're gonna get that hopefully soon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much more to add to that. I think that Emma summed it up pretty well there. That I think it was a great, it's hard to say, was it the ending that we expected, because it's, if we as the normal readers can predict the ending, does that kind of take away from the, the creative powerhouses that these people are? So I don't really ever look to an ending and say, oh, I bet you this is how it's going to end, and I'm kind of along for the ride, and that ride was entertaining and had lots of highly tense moments and awful images and scary monsters. So I enjoyed the entire ride.
Yeah, and Justin, real quick in the chat, I totally forgot about this. Sian also has the claw that she cuts off. I totally forgot about that. That's insane amount of evidence right there.
Yeah, all of Wave 3, right? The ending is a tease. It's a giant tease for what we will hope to get in like a couple of years now. But I love that this story was able to both give us as readers answers that we have been looking for a long time, and helped maybe give a little bit of closure, while also still pushing us on to whatever comes next. And I feel like the mark of a good book, a good comic, is when I finish it, do I wish that I had more of it? And I absolutely do wish I had more of this here. So I can't wait to see what they do. And I'm glad that we got it the way we did.
Absolutely. One thing I would like to say is, I feel like if I was trying to explain the series to someone like a newcomer, I feel like it would be almost a little reductive to say it's like a murder mystery, because it doesn't really follow through with that. I feel like it's a little bit more towards like 007 James Bond than it is Sam Spade. How would you guys feel about that description? Like it's more it's a little bit more James Bondy, though, mystery sort of thing, than it is like a noir detective.
I'll answer your question with a question. Who is Sam Spade?
I am right there with Emma.
Agreed.
Sam Spade is your archetypical noir detective.
Okay, I can work with that. That's kind of a hard question. Is it kind of a cop out to say it's a mix of both? Because
not really, no.
I don't think it's I don't think it leans too heavily into the noir type of stuff. It certainly influences it a lot, but it's not full on James Bond, because they're not. I don't think that there's enough action for it to be full James Bond, I guess.
It does end on a giant exploding space station.
I mean, that's true.
And also,
that's true. I'm kind of taking it as a whole, I guess.
And I also there's a certain relationship that goes alongside the idea of 007 that isn't necessarily, except for the Daniel Craig relationship, a healthy, equal relationship. And that is not how I would describe Sian and Emmerich's relationship.
Okay.
So
I think I know what you're talking about. So people are
Emmerich's not a womanizer. Emmerich's not a womanizer.
People yell at me, but I've never seen a James Bond movie. So you're talking about you're talking about the Bond girls, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay,
There is macho man sort of, it's kind of hard for me to explain on the spot, but there is very much a clear, distinct way in how 007, again, excluding the Daniel Craig version, views and treats women, and it's not in a positive light, not in an awful light either.
But in a pre-90s Legendsy way.
Yes, exactly.
Ooh,
That's a
that's
very
like
good.
Yeah,
yes.
this very much, she did not feel like she was kind of relegated to being a Bond girl. Sian was
Yes.
much more than that. Very much holds her own and is one of the most respected detectives in her division, right? So
Yeah.
like,
I mean, the freaking Senate went to ask for her specifically, you know?
Yeah. So no, I don't feel like any of that was there. I guess I could see where it could have been made campy to feel like a little bit more like an older 007 thing, but I didn't really pick up on those vibes. I guess this felt much more like curl up on the couch with the fireplace on and you want to read a murder mystery. This is what that felt like to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. So that's it.
Should we get to our ratings?
Yes. So again, for since this is the first time we on the Cosmic Force are doing this, we have redone our rating systems. Instead of 1 through 10 or a numerical rating, we're now putting it into various categories. Starting from the bottom, we start with a mediocre, then to fair, good, incredible, and then lastly masterpiece. So let's go around the table here. Who wants to start first? Tyler, do you want to start?
Sure. I think this is a pretty solidly incredible book. It is hard for me to consider it a masterpiece when I have such a strong position on how much the difference of enjoyment you get if you were to read all of the High Republic versus if you were to only read this. If this could stand up on its own a little bit more, I could entertain the masterpiece, but with that being said, it is still incredible. It is if you are reading all of the High Republic and you read no comics, you must pick this up, because the explanation as to what the Nameless are, especially in relation to the adult books and the Fallen Star, you have to pick this up, because there are very important elements of those stories that are in this book. So that's I mean on it's essential if you're if you're reading the High Republic. So like I said, a very strong, incredible.
All right, Emma, why don't you give us your statement?
Yeah, I am gonna give it an incredible as well. I'm not 100% sure what's keeping me from making it a masterpiece. I kind of feel like, I don't know, it definitely is grounded in the High Republic era more than a lot of other comics I think we're going to be talking about. It's kind of grounded in other things is what I guess I'm trying to say. But I really enjoyed this a lot. The characters, Emerick and Sian, like I said at the beginning, Emerick is now one of my favorite High Republic Jedi, easily in the top 10. And I just like the way that he was portrayed. I love the way that Sian was portrayed. I really like Daniel José Older's writing in this. It was really great. The art was fantastic. It was chilling when it needed to be. It was noir when it needed to be. It just did what it needed to when it needed to do it, and I thought that was great. The monsters and the nursery rhyme, all of that, it was so creepy and so eerie, but all of that, like, I think I've mentioned before, like, I'm not a huge, like, horror fan or anything like that. However, this is certainly something that made me more intrigued than it did to kind of like push me away from it, I would say. Like, I want to know more about these, these monsters, the Shriek Cry. I want to know like where they come from, and I think all of that stuff would be just very, very interesting. I want to know more about this nursery rhyme. Why do they keep coming across this nursery rhyme? It's so freaky, and I also want to know why they would sing it to the children. Like, I want the real answers. And yeah, ultimately, I just came out of this like asking more questions, but in a good way. Like, I feel like sometimes that can be bad, like if it didn't include enough detail or something like that. But this is certainly in a good way. It really only piqued my interest. So I certainly hope that we get more of this story, not only with like the whole monster thing, but I desperately, desperately want a, buddy cop novel with Emerick and Sian. I don't even care if it's an adult novel, a YA novel. It could be middle grade. It could be a picture book. I would read it. So definitely incredible for me. It was the characters and the plot were too good for it to be any lower.
All right, Timothy, what's your statement?
Yeah.
Fact.
I could easily put it into incredible, but I think for me, this is going to be in the masterpiece category.
I like it. I like it.
I think everything about the story excels. Like, it just hits time and time again. I remember reading it the first time through, issue to issue, month to month, and I could not wait for more. Daniel José Older just completely blows the writing out of the water. You can tell he's in his element, and he's writing characters that he really knows and enjoys. The combo of Dave Watcher as the artist and Giada Marchisio and the colorist, the colors pop so much. The characters are terrifying. You can read emotion so well. I think through and through, this 5 issues is one of the best 5 issues of any Star Wars comic that I think I could pick up. Like, it's probably one of my favorite trades of all time, to be honest. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think I want to put it in the masterpiece category. It didn't let me down. It started off with a bang, and I just loved it through and through.
The first masterpiece on the Cosmic Force. You'll love to see it.
Exactly.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right. So that leaves me, and I feel conflicted. Like, I think I agree with like pretty much everything Tyler said. It's definitely incredible for me. I wish I could say it's a masterpiece, but I feel like there's just a little bit too much outside sources needed. As I said, when I'm reading it and I'm seeing like Sarah and Tarek come back in, I'm seeing like literally like the same panels from the High Republic Adventures. That's so incredible. That's such a great master stroke there. But like when I'm trying to review it just as a standalone sort of just by itself, just as volume, I think I'm going to say incredible. But like, if you are like us and you have read the rest of the High Republic, I think could easily be considered a masterpiece. But just for this volume itself, just for these 5 issues as a standalone, they are incredible. That will be my statement.
Very good. High praise all around.
I love Justin's statement too. He said if it was a longer series, it might push it over the edge. Like seeing the story and the art's amazing, seeing the Nameless portrayed added a lot. I could definitely see if this was expanded further, either a little bit pre this story or even just pushed a little bit more out. If it turned into an 8 to 10 issue thing, I could definitely see it packing more of a punch for sure.
Totally.
So
and I like the fact that all 4 of us were not the same. So I like I said, I rated incredible, but I love the fact that Timothy, that you think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
So all right, Timothy, you were tasked with the Easter eggs for this little thing, and there weren't that many.
So yeah, so what happened was
I'm not going to throw my friend Timothy under bus. I was kind of going to do Easter eggs, but then I totally forgot until about 3 o'clock, and it's like, oh no, there's nothing
Timothy,
here.
You are tasked with reading the Easter eggs that were found in this book.
Yeah, so I think the big one, right, is that we now know officially what these creatures are named, and that they're the Nameless, as ironic and funny as that is. And the first time that we hear this is from a prophecy in Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice. So this is pretty much where this comes in. The quote, the prophecy, if you'll remember, is only through the sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. And there's a very strong chance that these are correlated and could clean up a lot of stuff
through the sacrifice of many.
Dude, how did you remember that?
It was just immediately. I mean, Master and Apprentice is such a masterpiece of a book anyways. And I always have a thing for Jedi lore, Kyber lore, prophecies, give it all to me. And so when I saw this, I was like, everybody's dying in the High Republic. And so maybe this is just one of those lingering prophecies that no one ever was like, stamped, this one was finished.
That I like here. Caleb, did you put this in the notes?
No, this is all Timothy.
this is all this, so Timothy, you copied this verbatim from Master and Apprentice, because something that caught my eye, and I wanted to ask that before, is that in this quote, the nameless is lowercase.
Yeah, that's some
However,
of the
as you were reading that, it's like, oh, what if that's nameless with a big N? And that's wow. That was a very, very nice
hard hitting
find right there.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there have been so many pulls to the High Republic already. I mean, like there is stuff that's happening in the current storytelling from the original trilogy and the prequels. I mean, obviously from Master Apprentice, like the High Republic has been in the works for so long.
Yes, yeah.
They've been tagging and teasing this stuff out. I mean, Kevin Scott writing Dooku Jedi Lost. Yeah, right. Dooku Jedi Lost came about sometime like right around that era, and that's when we first heard about Master Trennis, I think. And you know, yeah. So there's all these cool plugs, and this one was a big one, because everybody, as soon as the last issue came out, I remember online kind of blew up temporarily of like, oh my God, is this them? Is this
that's
that?
awesome.
So I hope so, and I think so. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm very excited.
I'm gonna be keeping my eye on that for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really hope that this pays off.
And I can't remember for sure either, whether it was in the Fallen Star or if it was in the Eye of the Storm comics. I can't remember, but I feel like at some point there was mention about how the nameless like hate the Jedi, or like something bad had happened to them. So it makes,
I think that was the Eye of the Storm.
That sounds, I was gonna say that sounds like
I didn't want to get super spoilery or anything, but yeah, I feel like there was something there that makes this fit even more so.
That's interesting. Like you don't, I don't know why. It kind of makes me think of like the Drengir, how the Jedi trapped them, or somebody trapped them.
The Sith.
The Sith. Yeah, they like trapped them in those artifacts on the Amaxian station, right? So like, I wonder if that was like a bad thing done to the Drengir. I wonder what bad thing the Jedi did to the Nameless. Interesting, good stuff.
We
Timothy.
shall see in what? No sooner than October. No, October's only phase 2.
Backwards, yeah.
So we got we're this is gonna be
we're at least a year out probably.
Yeah, this is gonna be hanging around for a while. All right,
2024.
Well, before we get out of here tonight, Emma, you've got some very important announcements for the next week of content. So I'm going to turn it over to you before we wrap up.
Absolutely. So usually this is the part of the show where I go down the list of all 3 of our live shows and talk about what everybody's talking about that week. But we're all talking about the same thing this week, or not this week. Sorry, next week. Next week. And that is Kenobi. It is our Youtini Kenobi crossover week. It is very, very exciting. So the dates for this starts May 15th. That is in 4 days. Yes, it starts on, was that Sunday? Sunday, I believe, with Star Wars Archives. Or Saturday. I can't do math. My brain. Anyways, so we got the schedule for you, schedule of events. It doesn't include some things. We want to keep some things a little bit of a surprise for you. But Monday on the Living Force, it kicks off with a Kenobi character spotlight. So that's just kind of highlighting a lot of Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff through canon and elsewhere. And then Wednesday, right here on the Cosmic Force, we are discussing from the Journals of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is from the Star Wars 2015 series, and it was kind of a little arc in there. And then Thursday on Legends Look Back, they are discussing the Kenobi book by John Jackson Miller, which will be really interesting. And it's actually going to be my first time reading that, so very exciting. Friday on Youtini Game Nights, we are playing something with Obi-Wan. We're still not 100% sure. I know Wes was trying to figure out how to run the old Obi-Wan game from the original Xbox, trying to figure out how to run that, so we'll see how that goes. But either way, it'll be something that has to do with Obi-Wan. And then, Saturday on the Star Wars Archives, it is the Ben Years, which is a very exciting title because we don't get to see a whole lot of that era of Obi-Wan. So really excited to see what they have to say on that. And obviously, that is it for like our scheduled content. But there's going to be much more from all of our teams. I know we've got a video coming out and a couple other surprises for everybody. So you're probably wondering, what should you read if you want to follow along with all of these events? And I will tell you, you can pick up Kenobi by John Jackson Miller, which was recently released as part of the Essential Legends collection. And you can also get it as an unabridged audiobook now as well as part of that Essential Legends collection. And you can get it for free, actually, youtini.com/audible. You can use a free trial of Audible, get a book on us. It could be Kenobi. It could be whatever book you want, but we all have Kenobi fever. Let's face it. You're going to want it to be Kenobi. You can also pick up from the Journals of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That is to, you can participate in our show by doing that. And we have an affiliate link, and I did put that in the description, as well as the affiliate link for Kenobi. So yeah, that is what's coming up next week. It's going to be a huge week. We're going to be talking Kenobi, and then the week after that, we're going to be talking about Kenobi even more, but for different reasons, because finally, the Obi-Wan TV show is coming soon, and this is all obviously in celebration of that celebration. Ha 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 ha. I did not do that on purpose.
It's going to be, I mean, May is always a great time of year.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's on purpose because of May 4th, but May always seems to be a great time of year for Star Wars fans. And now more than ever, we've had May 4th, we've had Free Comic Book Day, we've got the Kenobi series coming up, we've got Celebration coming up. It is a great time to be a Star Wars fan.
Absolutely.
So be sure to join all of our shows live right here on youtube.com/Youtini to make sure that you're watching all the shows. Because yeah, we're gonna have we've got a lot of fun things planned for you. So,
Absolutely.
All right. I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Cosmic Force. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show right here on YouTube, where you can hear us live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, or we encourage you to subscribe to our audio version on whatever podcast platform you listen to. You can also find us on Twitter and tweet at the show at Cosmic Force to stay informed about Star Wars comics happenings, or follow the host individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanick, and Timothy is at TC Guthrie 2. For reviews, articles, and news for the rest of the expanded universe, be sure to visit youtini.com. We also encourage you to join our Youtini Discord community by going to youtini.com/Discord, and you can help support the show by heading to patreon.com/Youtini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to OK Endar, Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, as well as Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C, and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their continued amazing support. Thank you again to Emma, Caleb, and Timothy for hosting with me tonight. A special thank you to those of you that joined us live in the chat, and an extra special thank you to our listeners for joining us on the audio show, wherever and whenever you are listening to us. We truly appreciate you. We hope to see everybody again next week, but until then, may the Force be with you.